Vinicius Jr. grew up as a Brazilian wonder kid, but at the age of 17, the whole country laughed at him. He was able to sign for Real Madrid for 45 million and for the first 3 years was labeled a flop until he finally became the best footballer player in the world. But despite his talent, he has also become the most hated player in all of the Spain. So how did he do that? How did a 45 million euros flop become the best but also the most hated player in the world? This is the full story of Vinicius Jr. Vinicius Jr. was born on 12th of July 2000 in São Gonçalo, Brazil, a poor area in Rio de Janeiro. Vini's first taste of football came in 2006 when his father took him to Theatre Academy, associated with Flamengo, where Vinicius was first documented as a left back. But very quickly, they realized that he was destined to play higher up the pitch, as even from a young age, he was lightning quick and could do magic with the ball at his feet. Vini's family was poor so much so that he had to go and live with his uncle, just to be able to shorten the distance to training. But luckily for the family, when he turned 10 years old, he was handed his first youth contract with Flamengo, and the family started to receive financial aid from the club. This was a big deal because Flamengo were one of the biggest clubs in all of the Brazil, meaning his family started to see his football ability as the ticket to be a better life. And as time went on, they started to believe this more and more because Vini dominated football at youth level, really making a name for himself. At 16 years old, he got the call-up to play for Brazil under-17 team in the South American Championship. Vinicius toyed with his opponents and scored 7 goals, winning the tournament and finishing as the best player, and it's probably the best time he had with the Brazilian national team in his whole career. Because his time went on, things wouldn't go too well for him in his country, but more on that later. This is when the biggest clubs in the world really started to take notice of the young Brazilian, as he was being talked about as the next Neymar, and Barcelona wanted to get their hands on him so badly that they were ready to pay Flamengo his release clause of 30 million euros, but Real Madrid weren't ready to lose another Neymar to Barcelona, so they got Flamengo to offer Vini a new contract with a new release clause of 45 million euros just to outbid Barca. And just like that, on the 10th of August 2010, Real Madrid got their hands on the next Brazilian wonder kid, but as much as Real thought, they got a superstar. Everyone in Brazil was laughing at this transfer because Vini Jr. had only just made his senior team debut 10 days before this signing, where he only played for 20 minutes, so Real Madrid broke the world transfer record for an under-19 player with major risk attached, as he has completely unproven, which led the whole country to think that got scammed, and for a while they would be right, until one day they would be right anymore. But we were going to have to wait for that for now. Since Vinicius was under the age of 18, he couldn't get a work permit in Spain. So before he could join the Spanish Giants, he had to spend the next 2 seasons at Flamengo, where things were quite rocky to say the least. In his first season, he played a total of 37 games where he only managed to score 4 goals and get 1 assist, which resulted in a lot of criticism from the Brazilian media. He was not playing well, he had poor decision making and no end product, and with the 45 million euro price tag looming over his head, he was under even more pressure. He did manage to end the season strong though, and actually carry this into this second season in Brazil. He scored 10 goals and registered 3 assists in 32 games as his overall game improved drastically. He was happy on the pitch, always smiling and dancing, and now he had just turned 18 years old, meaning he finally got his dream move to Real Madrid. Little did he know that things were going to get very difficult for him. On the 20th of July 2018, Vinicius Jr. was present as a Real Madrid player, and from the very start, something was just off in his presentation ceremony. He struggled to do some simple tricks, and it was looking like the pressure of the biggest club in the world was going to be too much for him. When he arrived, he began playing in the B team until the end of September, when he was brought on as a late substitute to make his debut for the club. A month later, on the 31st of October, he was handed his first start in a Copa del Rey match, where he picked up 2 assists in a 4-0 win, and just 4 days later, he scored his first goal as he came on as substitute. Things were looking good. He was becoming a regular starter, and by the end of February, he got his first call up to the Brazilian national team. But everything came crumbling down. On 6th of March, in a Champions League game against Ajax, where Vini would suffer a ligament tear that ended his season on the spot. He was recovered for the 1920 season. A few things had changed. Zinedine Zidane was back to Real Madrid for his second stint as manager, and they had just spent €100 million to sign Eden Hazard, who unfortunately for Vini was a left winger, meaning he was going to struggle to get into that starting. And when he would be played out of position. Even when Hazard was performing poorly, he was still chosen over Vini because Zidane had to try to make his transfer work, since he was the only who was signed off €100 million deal. It also didn't help that Vini seemed to have lost any good form he had from last season. The same criticisms rang true again. He lacked composure, and it would get so bad that the Real Madrid fans would even boo him. When Vini finally scored his first goal that season, he broke down in tears on the pitch, and it had been 8 months since he was able to find the back of the net. Vinicius ended the season with 29 appearances and only 3 goals, and despite being crowded a La Liga champion, this was far from what he was hoping to achieve in Spain. But heading into the 2021 season, things just went from bad to worse, as now his teammates were starting to turn on him. This is a footage of Karim Benzema at halftime of a Champions League match, telling foreign many, "Brother, don't play to him on my mother's life. He's playing against us." This is how bad things got for Vini. Karim Benzema, a leader in the squad, telling his teammates to avoid passing to him. And remember, Vini is still only 21 years old. At this point, winning this could have and probably should have broken a young player like him. Real Madrid ended the season trophyless, and there was a lot of frustration in the fan base, and for some reason, the fans were targeting all their hate at Vini, even though Eden Hazard was playing just as badly and cost twice as much. Barcelona fans were also enjoying this very much, and they were so close to signing him 4 years ago, thinking he would be the next Neymar. But despite all the similarities in their style of play, now people were saying he would never be as good as Neymar because he just had no end product and wasn't able to score a goal consistently. But things were about to change, because heading into the 2022 season, Real Madrid appointed a new manager in Carlo, and seemingly overnight something changed within Vini. He was done being the laughing stock and was ready to become what he was meant to be, a footballing great. Now, over these next few years, Vinicius Jr. would go on to become the best but also the most hated player in all of Spain. But before the season began, he was called up to play in the Copa America, where Brazil made it all the way in the finals, but unfortunately we beaten by Messi and Argentina. Vini didn't really play a big role in the squad, but it was his first major tournament with the national team, so it was significant for him. As Vinicius Jr. landed back in Madrid after the summer of 2021, he was introduced to his new manager Carlo, and it seems like it was love at first sight because this season we saw a whole new Vini. It's also important to note that amount of work Vini had been putting in, especially on his finishing, and this really showed as he opened the season scoring the fourth in a 4-1 victory for Real. If this is a new Vini or just a 1-month wonder, because they had never seen this level of composure from him before, and he just kept getting better. On the 30th of October, there were his 8th and 9th goals of the season, meaning just 2 months into the season, he had broken his goal scoring record of the previous 3 seasons, and he didn't stop there. He had quickly formed a killer partnership with none other than Karim Benzema, the one who just 1 year before was instructing the team to avoid passing to him. And by the end of the season, Vini would go on to take back and what he said, as he claims Vini came back a changed man this year. All in all, the season was amazing for Real Madrid. They lifted La Liga and the Champions League trophy, and this time around Vini played crucial roles in both victories. He finished the season with 22 goals and 20 assists, which was more than his previous 3 combined, and he also showed up the biggest game, scoring in the Champions League semi-finals against Man City and then scoring the only goal in the final against Liverpool. meaning he was the reason Real Madrid were the champions of the Europe. He was named as the Champions League Young Player of the Season and placed in both the La Liga and Champions League teams of the season. Even though Ben was the star man of the Real Madrid this season, eventually going on to pick up the Ballon d'Or, it was very clear that Vinicius Jr. had finally evolved and become one of the best players of the football world. But now, since his performance is on the pitch, we're no longer something that people could attack, and since a lot of rival fans love to hate on Vini, they turned to the color of his skin instead, and as he became the serial victim to many racist chants, attacks, and comments, Vinicius Jr. is a proactive player. Now heading into the 2022 and 23 season, he kept his form up and actually bettered his output tally. As he ended the season with 23 goals and 21 assists, Real Madrid fell short in La Liga, losing it out to Barcelona, and they were knocked out in the semifinals of the Champions League by the eventual winners, Man City. But Vinicius still cropped up in big games like the round of the 16 against Liverpool and the semi-final first leg against City. Vinicius did manage to lift the Copa del Rey, and this season also had a World Cup. The common cause: Brazil underperformed, meaning there isn't really much to talk about. This season it seemed like it was the world against Vini, as he was by far the most tackled player in all of the Europe. And so many players hated his style of play and would often find his tricky insulting. So there was a lot of extra aggression placed on him. The issue here was that the referees weren't doing much to protect Vini, and they often let things go by. There were also a number of incidents from the fans showing pure hatred against Vini. So now heading into 23 and 24 season, his 6th year at Madrid, Vinicius Jr. was handed the number 7 jersey as Eden Hazard finally left the club, and Karim Benzema also left to the Saudi League, meaning Vinicius Jr. was officially the main man at Madrid. Boy, we're ready to cook. For the 3rd season in a row, Vinicius scored more goals than the last, as this year he picked up 24 goals in 39 games, but his performances were more than just stats, and he was simply unstoppable. On the 31st of October, Real Madrid announced a contract extension, which meant Vinicius was guaranteed to stay at the club for another 4 years. This was especially significant since people were speculating that he wanted out of Spain due to the heavy levels of racism, but Vini preferred to take revenge. And in the March of the season, he finally got to return to Valencia for the first time since he was sending off. The game didn't start as he hoped, as Real Madrid found themselves 2 goals down, and as expected, Vinicius was playing in his usual expressive style and Valencia fans were abusing for him. Luckily for Vini, he was able to score 2 goals to level the game, celebrating the second, creating an iconic image in the front of Valencia fans. Real Madrid carried on to have a fantastic end to the season, and they comfortably lifted the La Liga title with Vini, finishing in the team of the tournament for the 3rd year in a row. The Champions League, though, Vini would step up his game even further as he finished as the player of the tournament with 6 goals and 5 assists, with crucial goals in both the semi-finals and the final to lift his 2nd Champions League. A couple crazy stats about this: he is now scored in the Champions League semi-final 3 years in a row, and he is the youngest player to ever score the 2 separate Champions League finals. Talk about a big game player. As the summer rolled on, Brazil played another Copa America with Vinicius, but yet again nothing really to talk about, but this definitely does not take away from the season Vinicius Jr. had. He used to be told that he will never be as good as Neymar because he lacked the composure, but now he is on track to do what Neymar failed to do his whole career, as he is being talked about as the best football player in the world.